Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dagger. And it is March 16th, 2026. So you know what that means. Oh, wait. Wrong song. Hold on. There you go. The beginning of March Madness.
Scoop, there it is.
Scoop, there it is. That's 5 years old now, by the way, which is ridiculous to think about.
That's crazy. It still holds up, though. Probably the best March-related commercial ever made, right?
I think so. I woke up feeling the cheesiest, coach. That's up there.
That's a pretty good one, but I feel like that one has equal ties to college football. I feel like the scoop there it is more so like a March exclusive tradition.
I think so too. And there's all the ones with like Chuck and like Samuel L. Jackson, like when they go to Annapolis instead of Indianapolis. That's really good.
Yeah, Capital One.
Yeah, those are good too. But we are here. It is March Madness time. March Madness 2026 kicks off in a few days. I'm Ramsey Mackin here with my co-host Dylan Payne, and we're here to do our official bracket, which we have put some amounts of thought into. Neither of us are college basketball experts, and it's impossible to be an expert in a tournament with 68 teams. But both of our favorite teams are in this tournament, which is very exciting for us, as well as many of our friends' teams with different Florida schools. And we're very excited to talk about it and break down all the games and our perspectives and our favorite upset picks and Cinderella stories and our eventual champion, trying to be a little bit unbiased, but it's going to be impossible to avoid. Dylan, why do you think, just your opinion, why do you enjoy March Madness? And why do you think, regardless of how much of a college basketball fan you are, or I am, like it always tends to be the most exciting sports time of the year?
Number one, as far as the sport itself, college basketball is positioned very uniquely to have so many teams be able to be able to participate in something like this. Number one, you have a field of 68 in a single elimination style tournament in a sport where truly anything can happen on any given day. You look at a sport like college football, you look at a sport like the NFL, more often than not, significantly more often than not, the better team is going to win. But basketball has whatever you want to call it, this unique parity that every single year delivers us with memorable moments and upsets and just these incredible stories that are crafted through the sport that people hold on to for generations, that define legacies, that define schools. And it just keeps everybody coming back. Whenever people think of the words March, it's synonymous with the word madness, and that's for a reason. It's because it is a chaotic, beautiful work of art towards the sport of basketball, where truly anything can happen. And so I think that is where the appreciation for March comes from.
Extremely well said, man, and I completely agree. And that's why I'm so excited. In fact, you, me, and about 6 of our other friends are going to see 4 first-round games on Friday in Tampa in the Lightning Stadium, which is going to be incredible. And we're going to hit those games when we get to them. We'll announce what they are.
I found out that they changed the name from Amelie. Do you remember what it is now?
Yeah, it's Benchmark International Arena. So
what
stupid.
A horrific downgrade. Who
I know
made that decision?
Yeah, that was iconic. Same with Amway. I mean, Amway to Kia isn't that big of a deal, but it's just doesn't feel the same. So anyway, all right, here's the rules. We have our brackets in front of us, which we have filled out or at least have notes about, and so we're gonna debate and come to a conclusion for each game. There will be 63 decisions in total to make. And we're going to set a timer because last year our long pod with Rajan, who, by the way, Rajan, our other co-host, he's busy in studying abroad in Italy, so he cannot be here. But he will still be tuning in and rooting for the Gators. Anyway, that episode ran like 2.5 hours, so I really don't think anybody listened to it. Although it was our first episode with Dylan, so I'm sure some people tuned in for that. But we're going to try to stay concise for y'all and keep it to a minute per matchup, and the person who does less of the talking will time the other one. and then they can add on anything that they would like at the end and help make their pick. And we're going to go region by region, starting with East, then South, then West, then Midwest. So going from left to right, top to bottom. And yeah, sounds good, Dylan. You ready to go?
Ready to go when you are.
All right. Yeah. I mean, there's other things to talk about, like, you know, we could hit on like general Cinderella stories or trends or like the champions, like the criteria that you need. But I think we can just hit on those at the end or like as we go, you know. All right. Well, you can start, or I'll start actually, and I'll talk about the first two matchups. So you could start your timer. You got that ready?
Yep.
All right.
On
and
you.
Go ahead. So Duke over Siena. I'm not going to provide any analysis on that. Dylan can talk about Duke in a little bit for a future interesting matchup. So Ohio State TCU is our first 8-9 matchup. Now this is interesting. I'm a little bit biased. I spent the summer working in Columbus and have now many friends who are Ohio State current students and will be rooting for them. However, none of them care about the basketball team because they only go to the football games, and somehow the basketball games cost money. But yeah, they are an 8 seed against TCU, who's a 9 seed. So Ohio State is a slower team. They're a very good free throw shooting team. I have some interesting stats here. They are very impressive in KenPom when you look at the rankings. I think they're the best 8 seed, and TCU is like the worst 9 seed. So there's quite a disparity, like 25th versus 41st or something like that. And Ohio State, did pretty okay on road games and neutral site games, and even though they lost.
Could I pause you real quick? So that was time. I think that we're going to have to expand it to 2 minutes because that was definitely not enough time to be able to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
I'll spot you an extra minute starting now.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
And there's going to be a lot of matchups that we just go through really quickly that we don't even count anyway. So, all right, yeah. So Ohio State is 3-10 in quad 1, but they're 17-1 otherwise. And I like them over TCU. According to some statistical analyses, TCU is overseeded. They allow a lot of threes, and they have a good turnover differential. They also beat UF earlier this year in December. And they're very good, and they're very adjustable as well to both pace and just the strength of their opponents per Evan Mia. But honestly, for the 8-9 matchups, sometimes I'm just tempted to look at the spread, and Ohio State is favored by 2.5, so I'm going to take them.
I'm willing to go with you on that. Take Ohio State. I believe that great guard play, great stars shine in March, and Ohio State's all-time leading scorer as of, I believe, a couple of days ago, Bruce Thornton, has finally taken the Buckeyes to the big dance. I trust him to be able to get at least one win in this tournament. Take Ohio State.
I want to put that on silent, bro. Sounds good.
Let me stop playing the.
Also, I'm using a stopwatch just so we don't have that. All right, sounds good. You agree with me for the next 2 games? We're gonna take St. John's and Kansas. I couldn't find anything compelling about Northern Iowa or CA Baptist.
Yeah, unfortunately, no miracle repeat for Northern Iowa. Last time that they were in the tournament, the half-court shot against Texas. I don't see that happening.
Oh my goodness.
St. John's. Take St. John's, and I'm good with taking Kansas. That'll set up an incredible matchup in the second round.
Right. We'll get back to that. So I'll let you talk first about this next matchup. I actually have a lot of notes on this. South Florida USF versus Louisville. I'll let you begin.
So I really like this matchup for a couple of reasons. Number one, Louisville has thus far left some questions on the table. Some things that make this matchup interesting. Number one, and my most primary concern, is the health of Mikal Brown Jr. We're not sure what his outlook is going to be going into the NCAA tournament, as he's consistently struggled with injuries as of late. But looking at the South Florida side of things, this is a super trendy upset pick. I've seen a lot of positive buzz about them. They're a very, very strong rebounding team. They really clean up on the glass. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes on the offensive and defensive boards. And some more personal notes, their coach, phenomenal story. Again, this is what March is about, the stories, right? Their coach's father has never been able to watch him coach a college basketball game because he has dementia. The area where they're playing, just 20 minutes away from their hometown, so his father is going to get to watch him coach his first ever college basketball game. There's a lot to feel good about in this USF versus Louisville matchup for USF.
I completely agree. I'm going to take the Bulls here. USF is very unique in their play style. They're extremely aggressive. They play at a super fast pace, one of the fastest teams in the country. Louisville is also very up there, so this game might end up in a final score of like 90 to 87 type range for all we know. But USF, even though they're a poor three-point shooting team, they make up for that through how they crash the offensive glass, and they're very hot. And I think that the high-speed offense recently, being close to Louisville, makes them a smart upset pick in a context like this. And I love the story too, with the coach being from Buffalo and them playing their first round there. So
is it 13 games their winning streak right now? Do you know?
I actually don't have that off the top of my head, but you might be right. But USF, no matter what, we're gonna take that as our first 11 seed and like major upset pick. And yeah. All right, so I know that's a little bit of a homer pick for us too, even though neither of us go there, but we will be doing that.
Full transparency, I hope that they lose.
Oh, really?
I mean, UCF and USF aren't exactly best buds. However, what a generational matchup that would be if they managed to both make the Sweet 16, which will not happen, but, that's spoilers ahead of the bracket, but.
And speaking of, next round, Dylan and I will take Michigan State over North Dakota State, very famous football team, And then, Dylan, you have the floor. 7-seeded UC Los Angeles versus 10-seeded UC Florida. That makes us count like a California school. University.
Let's roll it back.
I'll do it again. 7-seeded UCLA, 10-seeded UCF Knights. You have the floor, sir. Are you feeling an upset, or are you going to be logical? You begin.
So there are a couple things that jump out to me about this game. Number one is what is going to be the health and status of Tyler Bilodeau, UCLA's leading scorer, who had a knee injury and was held out of significant time in the conference tournament for the Big Ten. And what is the status of Donovan Dent, somebody who March is very familiar with, an all-star point guard, does kind of a little bit of everything for UCLA, who was held out with a calf strain. He is expected to play. I have no updates on Tyler Bilodeau's status. However, what we do know is when this Bruins team is healthy, they're playing their best basketball of the year right now. They absolutely ripped through the Big Ten tournament after a lot of drama earlier on the season, if people remember, with Mick Cronin, and there were some very interesting comments that he was making to the media, some very interesting decisions that he made in pulling certain players, generated a lot of media buzz, but I'll let that be, and I'll talk about my UCF Knights. Unfortunately, I don't feel like we're coming into this tournament on the right foot. We're, I believe, 1-4 in our last 5 games, with a tough win over Cincinnati, who was also a projected bubble team, and that knocked them to the wrong side of the bubble. However, what I will say about this UCF team is they have a tendency to play to the level of their competition. And when they get hot, when they're making threes, which they shoot a very high volume of, they can play with any team in the country. Look for Themis Folks, an incredible point guard and facilitator, to run the action for them. And if they're going to pull up the upset, JaMychal Stillwell on the inside has to be a beast, as he has all season. He's the Knights' glue guy, and he's also their highest rated player in terms of advanced metrics, the culmination of all of it. So if the Knights are going to pull off the upset, look for JaMychal Stillwell and Themis Folks.
Absolutely. I like your analysis. A couple of things I would add. UCF, there's a very good statistic from Evan Mia, who I pulled a lot of this data from, and he talks about the kill shot metric, which essentially measures how often a team will go on a 10-0 run versus allow a 10-0 run. And so you can just subtract those numbers and get the kill shot margin. And all of the best teams are like positive in this kill shot margin. for the most part. I mean, they just go on more giant runs than they allow. And there are only 3 teams in the tournament that actually are negative in this number. Like they have allowed more runs than they have gone on. 2 of them are the 2 16 seeds that Florida will play, either Lehigh or Prairie View, and the other one is the UCF Knights. And I know Dylan is not. I know you're not surprised by this because of what you just said, that your team is very hot and cold and has bad losses and close wins. So, does that affect your choice at all? And what is your final choice?
It absolutely does not affect my choice, just because I know the kind of team that we are. Realistic. Oh, another thing too that I forgot to mention, and something that should be taken into account, especially with the injuries and the fatigue of the Big Ten tournament, them having significantly less rest than UCF. This is an East Coast game. This is an East Coast game at night. UCLA traveling over across the length of the country cannot be underestimated. There are significant stats, especially at the college level, of how travel very, very adversely affects West Coast teams, especially in the late night East Coast matchups. So watch for that to be a factor. Now, I'll let you talk me into the logical pick if you really want to go for it. But I could never pick against my team in a 10-7 matchup that I can feasibly see a way that we can win. Give me the Knights.
I'm going to pick the Knights too. Because this is our damn podcast. But I will say that UCLA, unfortunately, is also a very trendy pick. Not that they're not a first-round upset, but they are a very popular, like, Elite Eight sneaky contender because of, as you mentioned, their recent run. And they play extremely slow, like you mentioned before the pod. They're a very, very good free throw shooting team. And UCF is just so hit or miss. But I agree with you. Playing in Philly, there's all these different things that can go wrong for UCLA. Even Donovan Dent and his New Mexico experience might not be able to make up for. So I'm going to go with the Knights. I don't feel great about taking them very far, but I'm happy to do it for you. So
cool. You want to hear one more cool story about that matchup real quick?
Let's do it.
Their point guard, Donovan Dent, makes more money by himself than UCF's entire roster combined. The effort by UCF's athletic program as a whole, specifically Johnny Dawkins and his staff, to assemble a group of transfers that returned 0 production from the previous season on the smallest budget in the Big 12, to be able to assemble this team and make this tournament is nothing short of incredible. One player makes more than our entire collective roster on UCLA's team. We'll see if Moneyball can take the Knights anywhere in the tournament.
That's incredible. I did not know that. I know that UCLA is a very high-paying or costly team, but well. All right. We're going to go with the Knights, and we're going to go with the Connecticut Huskies over Furman for the 2:15 matchup. So now let's go up to Duke versus Ohio State. So I'm sure we'll still pick Duke here, but would you like to hit on anything interesting that you'd like to share about Duke? They're the number 1 overall seed. There's not much negative to say about them, if at all. I mean, I really tried to nitpick in my notes here, but do you want to hit on anything really quick, or do you want to save it for a more interesting matchup?
Save it for a more interesting matchup.
Okay. So we'll take Duke here. Again, it's possible. The number 1 overall seed, I'll say, historically, very rarely wins the tournament. They almost always fall short of the goal lines at some point. But Duke's going to make it at least through the first weekend. Now we got St. John's versus Kansas. So this is a very interesting matchup. I'll start by talking about this, and then I'll let you handle it. I know you've watched Kansas play in person, actually, but St. John's, they're an underseeded team. In the Big East, they were able to win the tournament. They have the Defensive Player of the Year, Ejiofor, I believe, Ejiofor. And he's a 6'9" senior. He's one of the best defenders in all of college basketball. But St. John's is playing the style that they always do, just like last year under Rick Pitino. They are close in this trapezoid of excellence from Ryan Hammer. They have this adjustable pace, but they're overall generally a quite slow team. They take a lot of free throws. They're not a very good three-point shooting team. They rely more on that 2-point shot. And even though they allow among the fewest three-pointers in the entire college basketball landscape, they do allowed at one of the highest percentages. So it's a bit hit or miss, and I could see why people might pick them for an upset here. Now, Kansas has Darren Peterson, who will probably be the first overall pick in the NBA draft, yet he's not entirely a huge factor in this game. Even though he certainly will be the most important player for Kansas, they really are going to have to rely on the rest of their guys if they cannot get a consistent production or maybe even a healthy game out of Darren. Kansas is bottom in bench points per game in the entire tournament field. They're not a very deep team at all. They're very good 2-point shooters. They have a pace that's in the middle of the league, so then they're in this like Goldilocks zone of teams that are primed for a deep run. And they also kind of allow a few turnovers, I believe, and have an incredible defense. So this is up in the air. This is one of the best matchups of the entire weekend, assuming that we get this on Saturday or Sunday and neither team is upset. I would lean. I was leaning actually St. John's before the pod just for the sake of a mini upset and the coach. The coaches are both excellent, so that's really a non-factor. But because of the bench problem and not being able to trust Peterson. But do you agree with that? And what else do you have to say about Kansas?
So I absolutely agree. And my first gut reaction to seeing this was number one, St. John's at a 5 seed. It seems criminal. Honestly,
Right.
really unfair to Kansas, who has put together a pretty great season compared to what we potentially thought was going to happen after the beginnings of January started off really, really rough for them. The thing with Kansas isn't just a Peterson problem, which I'll get to in a little bit. They're just not a deep team. You're generally used to seeing this accumulated depth that Kansas has. These 6th, 7th, 8th, guys off the bench who are just able to come in and contribute immediately in the rotation. And they really just don't have that this year. Whether or not that's just a lack of talent, certainly you wouldn't think it's a lack of some of these guys getting into the games with all of the problems that Peterson has had, and their depth has been stretched very, very thin this year from injuries. So really, I have no idea why a Bill Self-coached Kansas team with as much money and resources as they have has fallen so short in acquiring depth. But the reality for the Jayhawks is that they get dominated on the boards more often than they would like to see for a successful team, a team that's looking to make a run in the tournament. As good as they are on defense, Flory Badunga is an absolute monster on the inside. He will for sure have an impact on whatever the game, whatever the situation, just as a result of his sheer athleticism, his timing are all incredible. But St. John's is better, I would say, on the defensive end. And so you're looking
Right.
at what potentially could Kansas do to be able to swing the tables on, at least on paper, in this matchup. And it all comes down to Darren Peterson. And if we're being real, since he's been back and consistently a part of the lineup, there's a large sentiment within the Kansas fan base that they've played significantly worse. He just really does not feel like he understands his place in this offense within this team, and that's understandable considering all of the time that he's missed, all of the media attention that's gone around him, and all of the missed games, the injuries or cramps or whatever the situation is. He just hasn't really, it's crazy to say about the number 1 overall projected draft pick, but he hasn't been a net positive for them in the games that he's been playing recently. There's too much uncertainty with this team. For as high as their ceiling is, I'm going to take St. John's. I completely agree with you. I think that it's a much easier pick to stomach. As you were referencing earlier, Zuby Ejiofor is an absolutely phenomenal player coming back in his second year for St. John's. And St. John's, a very disappointing tournament exit last year. They return at least some of their production and I'm sure are primed and looking to make a run to, at the very least, the Sweet 16 where they will meet Duke. I'll take St. John's in this matchup.
Excellent. All right. We move on to the next area of the bracket. We have South Florida versus Michigan State. Now, this is quite a tough matchup for the Bulls, of course, Michigan State, who we didn't talk about due to their easy first-round matchup. Michigan State is the best rebounding team in the entire country. They're one of the biggest. Incredible defensive rebounding and top 5 or 10 excellent offensive rebounding as well. And they play at a very slow pace. So it's just a kind of style that you can't help but have to follow. And unless you're some sort of unique and opposite fast-paced team, it can be difficult to adjust. But South Florida is that style of play. They are get a lot of possessions and take a lot more difficult shots and attempt a ton of threes. The only issues I would say that Michigan State has is that they don't exactly have many trusted creators outside of their main star Fears, whose first name Jeremy Fears, yeah, and one of their players went down earlier this year, and so we'll have to see if they can kind of recreate that kind of production. But the only issue would essentially be, does UCF outshoot Michigan State, or USF outshoot Michigan State as one of the top 3-point shooting teams in the country? And Michigan State tends to allow a lot of threes and just be much more aggressive in the paint. And do you have, given all that and anything else, do you have any reason to pick USF here?
I mean, absolutely. I feel like there's actually a lot of reasons to potentially pick USF in this game. Number one, like you said, obviously Michigan State is an incredible team on the glass. So is USF. USF is an incredible 3-point shooting team. They like to get up and down really quick. Michigan State is not only one of the slowest teams in the country, if you look at the pace that they want to play, but they also are one of the worst 3-point defenses out of any team in the field, with opponents shooting 38% from 3 on average against them. Now, if you have a USF team that has just pulled off an upset against Louisville, this is kind of seeming like a team of destiny with everything that's happened. I'm sure you and many people who are taking the time to listen to us talk about, March Madness probably also know the story of Amir Abdul-Rahim, their head coach, who tragically passed away 2 seasons ago after an incredible season with the Bulls. If they're riding that high, assuming that they get by Louisville, we're probably in a state of mind that they're playing pretty darn well. I could absolutely see them getting the upset against Michigan State, and honestly, I think that they match up quite well with them. Now, the interesting thing about Michigan State, when Jeremy Fears is on, they are an absolutely dynamic team. He is the engine for them. He makes everything go. He's a dynamic downhill driver. His ability to get into the lane is probably the best, or one of the best, of any of the guards in college basketball this season. He is an excellent facilitator, and really everything runs through him. He's at 9.2 assists per game. But when he gets shut down, and when he gets frustrated, in the games that I've watched from Michigan State this year, they have a terrible, terrible habit of going completely ice cold, stagnant, whenever he is either not in the game or whenever he is not able to create on his own. If USF is able to challenge Fears effectively with the guards that they have, I think that they could absolutely see an upset against Michigan State. But
Wow.
I'm willing to defer to you on whatever you want to choose. We do have to go with at least one upset pick to at the very least the Sweet 16. So I personally would not mind if it was USF, as much as I don't like them.
I have a couple labeled down the line to keep track of, some double-digit seeds, but USF is one of the top contenders, and I think the biggest reason is, given the trapezoid of excellence, you can just see that USF has the third highest pace, while Michigan State is a bit more in the middle. And so if USF starts out on a streak and forces Michigan State to play to their style, I think that they'll take the win. So I'm happy to go with them. I'm probably not going to pick them any further, but and even though you and I don't necessarily want to see them succeed, let's go with the Bulls.
Awesome.
All right. And you may have 2 minutes now to say if you think UCF has any chance over UConn. Go.
No.
And there's the end of our segment. Well, what's the name of this rivalry again, Dylan? I sent you a reel about it.
This is, I'm actually so glad that you brought this up. This is a renewal of the civil conflict, one of the most historic and emotionally charged rivalries in the history of college athletics. To keep the quick version of this story, former UConn football coach, I forget his name, just casually decided one day, you know what, I think that we should have a rivalry with Central Florida, and he made a trophy for it, and he tried very desperately to get everybody behind it, but UCF just didn't care because they're UConn, and nobody has ever cared about playing UConn in football. Um,
Yeah.
and there is very famous lore around the trophy, the civil conflict trophy. To this day, nobody knows where the actual civil conflict trophy is. UCF won the game, the final matchup between UCF and UConn, and the only remaining sighting of the civil conflict trophy is a picture of it sitting with nobody around it on the bleachers because UCF had left it on the field because they genuinely did not care about it enough to even take it to the locker room. And ever since that moment, it has never been seen again. The original has never been seen again. With that
Wow.
being said, yeah, UConn obliterates UCF. It was a great run to the round of 32. Great season. Go Knights. UConn gets the win.
Understandable. UConn is a dominant team, and we'll talk about them in a second, but they might not be able to beat UCLA if that opportunity comes, but we're going to go with them here. And now we have our Sweet 16. First, 1 seed versus 5 seed, Duke versus St. John's. I will let you start. I will go back to our timer here, so I'll give you 2 minutes and a warning. Any reason to pick St. John's in this matchup, and what do you think Duke might be able to take advantage of? Go ahead.
A couple concerns for the Blue Devils, which obviously we only know what we know right now. Caleb Foster, their backup point guard, who's a very effective contributor for them, suffered a broken foot injury on March 7th. Presumably, he will not be back. Further, their starting center, Patrick Ngangba, I believe it's pronounced.
I think so. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Had some injury issues in the ACC tournament and was not able to play in the championship game against Virginia. Very good Virginia team. Granted, it didn't seem to matter. Duke rolled anyway. And then I don't know. Like, it's really hard. There's really no weaknesses in this Duke team, but it really never seems that way with these 1 seeds. And if there is a team that I think could make a very physical, very athletic team like Duke very uncomfortable, it could be St. John's. Their ability to play excellent defense will travel regardless of however their shooting is, which at times this season has been probably some of the most atrocious numbers in the country. I believe they lost by 30 in a game where they didn't score for the last 10 minutes of regulation, a field goal. Do you remember, that?
Yeah, I'll try to find what game that was. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. You've never seen something like that before. And for it to come from an excellent team like St. John's, it's just unexpected. I think that if St. John's had a more reliable offense, I would be comfortable with potentially taking the upset pick over Duke, but I just can't see it. They only have a part of the equation, not the whole. And with that, I don't think that that's going to be good enough to beat this Duke team, which has been an absolute juggernaut all year long. And I'm sure that we can have more time later to talk about some of the individual excellence from guys like Cameron Boozer, but I think it goes without saying that he tips the scales pretty positively for a team like Duke. I would go with Duke in this matchup.
Okay, I agree with you. And yeah, that was a game against UConn, funny enough, where St. John's lost 72-40 and went almost the entire second half without making a field goal. Unbelievable. So, yeah, pray that does not happen for them again and for Rick Pitino's mental health. But we will be moving on to South Florida versus UConn. So we're giving UConn cupcake walk to the Elite Eight, or do you think USF actually has something here?
UConn probably sleepwalks into this one. And
Okay.
it's an incredible run for USF, but this UConn team with their wealth of experience, I mean, I believe that they still have some holdovers from that national championship winning team. I think that Caravan was on that team. Solo Ball's an incredible guard. We had the opportunity last year to watch him play against UF in the round of 32, a game that was, dare I say, the most that the Gators were challenged until the Final Four. Is that a fair statement? I remember the Texas Tech game. Texas Tech went up for a while, but the
Yeah,
Gators were able to recover. But that UConn game, I mean, they really, really almost let that one slip away, if not for a couple huge plays from who else but Walter Clayton Jr. down the stretch. God, I miss that guy.
you could say the same for multiple of those UF games. Yeah, but Texas Tech and UConn in particular were the blood pressure spikes. So I agree with you though. Let's take UConn. And for the final Elite Eight game, Duke versus UConn, predictable, we know. But when you're filling out a bracket, you just have to play the odds sometimes. And so this is the most likely outcome. Now, I'll start. I think that we have to pick Duke here. I understand that UConn is a very strong team, as you just mentioned. They have a lot of experience and an excellent coach, which Duke matches with John Shire. But UConn is very unique in their play style, kind of like they went back to back a couple years ago. They play very, very slowly. And the free throw margin is very interesting because they actually take almost no free throws and allow a lot of free throws. So it's just the kind of defense that they play. In general, they're a pretty poor free throw shooting team, but they do focus on 3-point defense. But I would just say my major concern for them is even though they started 22-1 and they were looking like the final one seed in ahead of Florida, they ended the season 7-4. They had pretty bad losses to Creighton and Marquette, which just happened in the last week. And so Duke, when you just look at every single advanced metric, how Duke is in the top 3 of like everything, and are firmly at the best team in the league with the best player in college basketball. I understand that it happens every year pretty much where the obvious team loses at some point that you don't expect, but I'm not really ready for it to be here quite yet. So I'll still take Duke.
I agree with you in everything that you said. To put a number to the free throws, they rank 233rd nationally in free throw percentage, and they don't take a lot of them either. In a close game like this, where experience is meeting experience in the tournament, a lot of holdovers from Duke's team that went to the Final Four last year, a lot of holdovers from UConn's team that went to the round of 32 and took the Gators to the wire. I think that you have to nitpick stuff like that. I agree with you. Duke wins.
Awesome. All right. The East region is a success. I actually like our Sweet 16 a lot there with seeds 1, 11, 5, and 2. That's just something that feels kind of natural. And our bracket's not going to be perfect, unfortunately. Last year our marketing technique was that
no.
Oh, okay. All right, Dylan. You go ahead.
There's always a chance. Hey, I mean, look, our bracket turned out pretty good last year. We were in a pretty high percentile compared to
we were in
the national
upper
average,
90th percentile, right? But that's mostly because it was chalk, and we did pick UF to win. So at the end of the day, if you pick the champion, you're guaranteed to be very highly ranked. So that's our biggest job today, regardless of how much thought we put into these first round matchups.
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, we're going to start the South region now. We went a little bit about 30 minutes there for that region, so we're going to try to go about 20 for the rest. That's our goal. And let's begin with 2 games that Dylan and I are seeing in Tampa with our other friends. We are fortunate enough to go watch Florida play in person. National champions, by the way. Here's the shirt. Reigning champs. I did not get a chance to see them play all season. There's not only have there been like incredibly long lines and people camping outside, but just a variety of assignments and scheduling conflicts. And so I'm truly grateful that we get to see them, if not on our home turf. Just watch them play a 16 seed. a 16 seed that will have to play a play-in game, either Lehigh or a Prairie View A&M. But I'm knocking on wood. I am knocking on wood, but let's hope that is a demolition. And let's move on to 8 versus 9 Clemson, Iowa, which we will be watching on Friday at 6:50 p.m. And I do have some opinions on this.
Hold on. I think that we got to go back. Lehigh
we got to go back.
Lehigh doesn't shock the world again. The spirit of C.J. McCollum doesn't will them to victory over the 1-seeded Gators.
Not this time, bro. I'm sorry. I understand. Yeah, that run from CJ was something special. I mean, but looking at the 16 seeds, like these two are definitively the worst, and they have to play a playing game.
They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible.
Like, if we go all the way to Tampa to watch Florida lose to a 16 seed, I'll never watch a game again.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the late night game too, right? That's our final game.
Yeah, it's at 9:15.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine the drive home?
Dude, we're gonna be exhausted, bro. Yeah, I mean, hopefully if we make it that far in the day, we'll be excited and get to watch a beatdown. But let's move on. Clemson versus Iowa, 8 versus 9. This is gonna be a good game. Iowa slightly favored. I am leaning Iowa. I don't have too many interesting statistics on these teams. I would say they both play a quite slow pace. Clemson's a good offensive rebounding team. But Ken Palm says that they're a bit overrated. Meanwhile, Iowa is a very good free throw shooting team, and even though they might not adjust very well to their opponents, Clemson and Iowa are close enough in general style that I don't think it's a big deal. And since Iowa is slightly favored and has some, in my opinion, some more impressive wins, I would prefer to take them. So.
I agree, and many fans will remember a lot of the names on this Iowa team from last year because basically it is the Drake roster plus new friends because Ben McCollum took the Iowa job after getting Drake to the tournament last year.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, Bennett Sturts. I knew I recognized this from somewhere.
Yep, Bennett Sturts, awesome player for Drake in this year for Iowa. I don't really like Clemson. They're a terrible team on offense. They come in losing a majority of their games. I think their last 7, they went 3-4. I'm not sure if that's completely correct.
Definitely pretty cold, something like that. Yeah.
Let me see. But yeah, they're coming in extremely cold.
They dropped 5 of their final 7, 2 and 5.
Oh, 5 of their final 7. Even worse. And unless you're being a homer like I was earlier with UCF, you generally don't want to ignore the way that teams play coming into March. Give me Iowa. I agree with you on that one.
Sounds good. All right. Next pair, we got Vandy versus McNeese. McNeese is a very interesting team. They were a very trendy pick last year, and they're always a fun team to root for. In particular, they are unbelievable on the turnover differential. If you look at the chart that I have in our document, like the turnover difference for them is just ridiculous. They their turnover percentage that they like commit themselves is really low, like bottom or top 10, I would say. And the opponent turnover percentage that they force is the best in the entire league or in the entire tournament field. With that said, Vanderbilt just won, I don't know. They came very close to winning the SEC. They just beat Florida, and they are a very, very good team. And so I'm just going to pick them and not think too much about it.
I agree with you on that. Give me Vanderbilt. Also, Vanderbilt doesn't really turn over the ball that much. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're a pretty steady team as far as taking care of the ball, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that they are, and from the game that I watched, they are as well, and they do tend to force a lot of turnovers themselves. Something interesting about them too is that I think they're the best like free throw shooting high major team in the tournament. So when it comes down to it, I tend to prioritize little things like that. So yeah, we'll take that.
Awesome. Go Doors.
Yeah. All right, next up we got Nebraska and Troy, which is pretty interesting. I'll let you start. Nebraska has been a fascinating team almost all season, and Troy could be an upset pick, but this would be a pretty big jump to take. So I'll let you start.
Give me Nebraska for no other reason than they are the only major high major team that has never won an NCAA tournament game.
Exactly.
I pray that they get it done. I even if they don't go far in the tournament, I know that they got off to a significantly hotter start than they ended the season, but even still, I know that they were dealing with some injury issues, particularly in early January against Michigan. They took them to the wire without one of their best players and gave Michigan one of their biggest scares of the season. They have great wins over Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan State, and Indiana. Granted, a lot of those earlier on in the season, and kind of struggled down the stretch, but I think that they have enough to take care of Troy. Despite, I mean, from all accounts, Troy seems to be a pretty great team. But give me Nebraska in this game.
Excellent. All right, then we will move on. We got UNC, the Tar Heels, Duke's rival, and what's their coach's name again? The one that we got to witness in person.
Hubert Davis.
Thank you.
Davis.
Hubert's still slinging it, and they're going against VCU, the 11 seed. And I think there's some stuff to say about here. Do you want to go first, or should
I? Please, you go first.
Okay, so I am actually a fan of VCU as an upset here. I'm not, like, looking ahead. I don't want to pick them against Illinois. I want to take either of these teams against Illinois. But I will say UNC, they do control the ball extremely well. And at the same time, they also don't really care about forcing turnovers. So, there's just going to be a low turnover game, I would expect. They're near the trapezoid of excellence in terms of that they have quite a high net rating, and they had a successful regular season. Of course, they're a 6th seed. But and they're in the middle of the area in pace too, so they can kind of play any kind of style. But I will say they're also an awful free throw shooting team, and that's something I'm just genuinely not a fan of. In addition, VCU, when you look at them, they are very high in free throws. They're one of the best in the country. I don't remember just in the tournament where they rank, but in the country they're 11th. They are quite proficient in threes. They have a very, very deep team. They're 6th in bench points in the entire NCAA. Even though, they shoot a lot of free throws, I would trust them much more in a late game situation than the Tar Heels. And I think that they're flexible as well. And so in a close matchup like this, I am going to just tend towards the upset pick. I think this is going to be a very fun game. North Carolina is favored by only 2.5. And so I see no convincing reason to pick them when you got VCU.
Great take. I also looked at this game and had it circled. Interestingly enough, we're picking 2 6-11s. Very, very, very interesting. I mean, hopefully we at least hedge our bets with this one and hit on at least one of them. Surely both of them won't lose,
Surely. Yeah.
So I think that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the absence of Caleb Wilson to this team. A projected
that's
top
really
5.
important.
Yeah, projected
so
top
sad,
5 guy. Yeah, it's just, you feel for the kid who was absolutely electric if anybody watched the first rendition of Duke versus UNC this year. One of the best college basketball games I've watched in a long time, and Caleb Wilson in a game full of stars was a step above everyone else, including Mr. Boozer that night, who had an incredible game in his own right. But when looking at UNC, a couple things jump out. Again, to put a number to what you were already saying, they rank 300th nationally in free throw percentage. They are atrocious from the line. Their depth is questionable, especially with injuries to Wilson and consistent injuries to a couple of their other players as well, with Seth Trimble dealing with some injuries down the stretch, who is now, but this is his team with Caleb Wilson out. So they're going to need to rely on both him and Henry Vasar to produce. They're going to need to get some guys on their bench to step up who haven't really seen a lot of minutes, Jaron Stevenson and Zayden High. And thus far, they really haven't gotten the production that they would hope for from those guys. I am absolutely down to take VCU in an upset here. I think that it's unfortunate. Sometimes things just don't break your way. And I think that this Tar Heels team with Caleb Wilson has a completely different outlook in this tournament. I think that their ceiling with him is significantly different than what their ceiling is now. And I think that they're running into a really bad matchup, as you highlighted, against VCU, with how efficient VCU seems to be in, the little things. So I'm more than down to take VCU over Carolina.
It's a smart upset pick, so I'll agree with you there. Okay. Next up, we got 3-seeded Illinois versus 14-seeded Penn, winner of the Ivy League. And I'm sure you saw what happened in the championship game for the Ivy League. And that man, TJ Power, former Duke and Virginia star, dropping 40 points, 44, yeah. Just ridiculous. And shout out to Penn. I think it's quite possible we get a 13, 14, 15, or 16 seed win this year. More than likely, we're not going to pick one here today. Actually, maybe one, but this 14 seed is not going to be it for me.
I agree. Illinois is one of the weirdest rosters in modern day college basketball. They're basically a pro-am Euro team, but they're really fun to watch. Son of NBA legend Peja Stojakovic, Andrej Stojakovic is on this team, and they're led by star freshman guard and potential lottery pick Keaton Wagler. I guess the only problems that Illinois has run into is they consistently blow leads late in the game. For whatever reason, they have had several games this year and several games within the last month where they have been up and just cannot seem to find a way to finish late. Whether that's a problem with who's getting the ball late in games or what, I don't know. They're one of the tallest teams in college basketball. They play incredibly smart, very, very balanced basketball. They're one of the best offensive teams in college basketball. I think that this one is pretty cut and dry, unfortunately, for Penn and TJ Power, who will forever be enshrined in Ivy League lore. But yeah, give me Illinois.
According to most metrics, Illinois is the best offense. So this is just a tough draw for Penn, who probably were hoping for like a high-powered offensive game, and this is not a team that you can play that game with. So, or at least beat them in their own game. All right, 7-seeded St. Mary's versus 10-seeded Texas A&M. TAMU is a pretty cool team. Obviously, I've seen some of their games in the SEC this year, and they ended up finishing third in the SEC in third three-point percentage and as well as turnover margin. So they've had a pretty successful year. They're good on both sides of the ball. But I actually quite like St. Mary's for this. They are just an incredible free throw shooting team, an incredible rebounding team. They play very slowly. I think this is going to be a really fun game. In particular, I'm excited for this matchup probably more than any other in this region. But I would prefer to take St. Mary's. I have them going to the second game. Do you agree? Or?
I absolutely agree. Buckyball got pretty hot there for Texas A&M through the midway point of the season. I know for a while they were the SEC front runner, but teams kind of started to figure them out, and maybe they regressed to the mean of what the talent on this team actually is. And I think that as good as a team as they can be, St. Mary's is a team that makes no mistakes. They play very, very tight and efficient basketball. I'm more than willing to go with St. Mary's in this game.
Sounds good. And yeah, they're right. With Duke, Florida, and Michigan State, St. Mary's is right there as one of the best rebounders.
So Idaho next, right?
Absolutely, Idaho. And we can move on to Florida versus... just kidding. We're going to be taking Houston, and the legend of Kingston Flemings continues. So let's actually just hit that right now. Houston versus St. Mary's. This should be a fun game, a defensive game. Houston, an excellent roster, top to bottom, and obviously one of the best coaches. They did have a disappointing conclusion in the national championship where they came so close to beating the Gators, and thank God that they did. But yeah, Flemings is just he's a projected lottery pick, and he's one of the best players in the entire tournament here. and he recently scored 42 points against Texas Tech. He's just a superstar, and their style is very interesting in Houston. They play super duper slow. They control the ball super well. They force turnovers. They're just incredible on most offensive and defensive metrics. So I'm assuming you will take them. But anything else you want to say about Houston now?
I will. I will take Houston here, but I have reservations.
Okay.
But that'll be for a later matchup to talk about.
Okay. Next up, I'm good to take Illinois over VCU, just assuming I think the VCU North Carolina matchup is kind of weak, and so I expect Illinois to beat both of them. I mean, unless they lose to Penn, we'll see. So we'll take Illinois. All right, now this, just like St. John's and Kansas, is one of the most fun round of 32 matchups possible. Just really tough draws for Nebraska and Vanderbilt, two very good regular season teams. What do you hope for this game? You can start.
I hope for a high scoring matchup. I hope that the guard play in this game takes over. I mean, you're looking at guys, Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles, who throughout this tournament were absolutely electric, lighting up teams from deep. And then on the other side, I know that Nebraska has pretty good guard play as well, but I'm more unfamiliar with the specific names on their team. You just have two teams coming in that, I mean, they know how to score the ball. They are pretty, I would say, at least evenly matched. Just looking at what the paper stats say about this game, I think that the odds prediction tool is a genuine 50-50 split for this game. So I don't know. There's a lot to like, but I tend to favor the team that has the hot hand going into the tournament, and unfortunately, that is not Nebraska. Vanderbilt is coming into this tournament on as hot of a streak as you could possibly be, except for the fact that they lost the last game against Arkansas, but they played incredibly well and honestly put themselves in a position to where at certain points in that game they could have won, but they also kind of ran into Arkansas team that is playing absolutely out of their minds right now. I can't not wait to talk about Darius Acuff Jr. But for this game, give me Vanderbilt and a rematch of the SEC tournament between Florida and Vandy.
I agree with you. And let's move on to that. We'll take Vandy. We'll take Florida over the winner of Clemson, Iowa. We do have Iowa. And then we got Florida Vandy, which is a rematch. And Florida had a quite ugly loss to them just about a week ago, Saturday. So, yeah. Wait. That was not a week ago. That was 2 days ago. Wow.
That was 2 days ago.
Okay, never mind.
Do you want to talk about some of the things that went wrong for Florida in that game? Maybe that might help provide us insights on what the keys to this matchup might be.
It's hard to say. I think that down the wire, sometimes we don't have the most consistent offensive producers. I will say, even though Florida shines in a lot of statistics, and I haven't talked about them because they have had two easy matchups, but UF has the second lowest 3-point percentage in the NCAA. And this is extremely evident for all Florida fans. It's like watching the Magic. It's just torture to watch a team that is so god-awful at shooting threes when you know that you cannot go very far in a playoff setting with that. And so sometimes, and I think the Vandy game was a decent example of this, there have been better examples throughout the season. Since we don't have a guy like Clayton necessarily, and we need to rely on Xavier Lee and Klavjar and whomever to be clutch in these big moments or stop these runs, we can be prone to being on the receiving end of a kill shot like that. And so sometimes, even though I think we have the best front court in the country, if the guard play is too heavy of a mismatch, it can be really hard for UF to squeak out a win in that setting. We only barely beat Vanderbilt earlier in the season. We won by 4. We lost by 17. So, if somebody's listening and wants to fill out this bracket, I don't think it's crazy to pick Vanderbilt over Florida here. I think that they are the strongest 5 seed. Definitively, Ken Palm has them at number 12. And I think that UF is a little weaker than the championship team last year, despite what some people online might say. I'm still obviously leaning Florida with the 1 seed and the experience and most of the roster continuity. Do you want to talk me out of that at all, or do you agree?
I mean, you brought up everything that I would. I think that we can pick Florida in this game. I don't feel great about it though. But at the end of the day, what gives me confidence is that if nothing else, Florida knows how to navigate the SEC. Their non-conference play was awful, if we're being completely honest.
Started super weak, 7-4 or something like that. It was terrible.
It was a really rough start to the non-conference for Florida. But something about what Todd Golden and his staff have figured out has basically just given them the golden formula to winning the SEC, at least the regular season this time. They compete incredibly well against games against conference opponents. I have a very, very tough time seeing Vanderbilt do what they did in the SEC championship game again, where it's just a no contest. I think at the very least, I would trust Florida's staff to make the necessary adjustments to keep the game closer, maybe by slowing down the pace of the game, maybe by trying to send more people at the offensive boards, try and get second and third chances to even further slow down the game. But I have real concerns about Florida's guard play. The reality of March and the reality of what it's always been is great guards win in March. And if I'm being honest, I'm not convinced that Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee, particularly Xavier Lee, are the kind of caliber of guards that win Elite Eight, Final Fours, and national championships.
No,
but I'll pick Florida in this game, but it's certainly not a foregone conclusion.
Thanks for humoring me. UF just when compiling these stats and seeing that UF is actually close to the bottom of the field in both free throw percentage and 3-point percentage, it really, induces a scare. And I think that given the week of prep that they get leading up to the Vandy game, looking at the tape from our 2 games, I think that we'll be able to figure them out. And I trust, as you said, this coaching staff that we got to meet some of to prepare for the matchup. But who knows? The game will be played in Texas, so kind of even in terms of home field advantage for both. And we can pick Florida. What you mentioned is interesting. Ryan Hammer, obviously one of the greatest in the game, college basketball minds in the game. He did an analysis of potential champions and all these different criteria that teams should have met in order to be able to win the national championship, looking at historical data. And unfortunately, one of the most interesting statistics that I've been telling people all year is that every champion since 2004 was top 12 in the week 6 AP poll. And that feels a little bit arbitrary because week 6, that's early in the season, right? Why? But it's because of the non-conference play. And you get an immediate sample size of how do teams do on neutral sites against similar competition in tournament-style games. And it is very reliable because, as I said, in 21 years or so, top 12 for that specific week has always been reliable to determine a champion. And Florida was not top 12. And so I said, back in December, I don't think we can win the title again. This just happened. So Ryan classifies UF as a tier 2 contender because of that and has 6 teams in tier 1. So that's why I think we're probably not going to end up having them as our national champion, even if I might in my personal bracket. But they do have some clear weaknesses, and so one can hope, though. All right, so we got Florida over Vandy, and next up in our other Elite Eight matchup, we have Illinois-Houston. A battle of completely opposite styles. You have the best offense versus the best defense. I can only imagine how fun this game would be. Dylan, you mentioned slight issues you might have with Houston that you would save. Is it time to talk about those?
Absolutely. Number one, just looking at the matchup itself, as you highlighted, contrasting styles make fights. And I have learned over the years, getting to watch this Houston team throughout the American Conference, then as they made the transition into the Big 12, whenever Houston gets matched up against generational offenses, generally their defense drags them down to their level. The only exception I have ever seen to that is Arizona this year and Florida last year, which are arguably two of, the greatest teams of this decade, depending on how Arizona performs in this tournament. Certainly, they had one of the most remarkable regular seasons in recent history. But my concerns with Houston are this. This is not the same Houston offense that we had last year. And honestly, I think that they may even be a shade below the defense that they had last year as well. Now, I don't have any numbers to support that. This is purely observation. But what I have seen on offense is, number one, Shaden Sharp has not, or not Shaden Sharp, Emmanuel Sharp. Thinking of the wrong guy. Emmanuel Sharp has not been the same player that he was last year. I believe that he's shooting sub 30% from deep throughout the later portion of this season heading into March. And Milos Uzan, for somebody who was an integral part of last year's Final Four and runner-up team, has really seemed to struggle to find his role working with Kingston Flemings, who is an incredible guard and incredible talent, but he can't do everything on his own. And at the end of the day, he is still a freshman. As mature as he is, as talented as he is, he's going to need to rely on the experience of those two who were on the team last year when things get tough in March. And they're going to need to act like a pressure release valve for him, right? Somebody who can, one of the two of them gets hot and goes on one of their signature runs, and that opens up Kingston Fleming to be able to get into the lane and do what he loves to do. Mm-hmm. If Sharp and Uzan can't get going, I really don't see a path forward for this team over Illinois even. I think that Illinois is a talented offense to at least keep themselves in the game. And at certain times this year, and if you look at their matchups, they've reflected it, when this offense goes stagnant, they're really kind of out of luck. And the biggest difference between this year's team and last year's team that I would identify is that Houston ranks dead last in college basketball in percentage of shots that come at the rim. They do not get to the rim at all this year, whether by design based on their personnel or whether by, just the way that they've happened to be playing. This also leads to them being 355th in free throw rate in the country. So if their offense isn't clicking, they're not getting bailed out by anything. Wait, isn't this an interesting trend, though, how a lot of the top teams and the top seeds this year rank so low on free throw percentage rate? I feel like this, maybe it's abnormal from years past. Maybe it's just because we've been harping on it this time in particular. But when this offense is not clicking, when they go cold, they do not have a way to bail themselves out of it because they don't get to the rim and they don't take a lot of free throws. So if they get in trouble and they go on one of their cold streaks that they've been known to go on this year, watch out, because your defense can only keep you in it for so long.
That's great analysis, dude. And yeah, I just finished watching a Celtics game where Jaylen Brown went 19 for 21 from the free throw line, which was a career high in both of them. And he did have 40 points and they won. And so yeah, I do get surprised in college basketball.
40 points. Is that ethical hoops? Is above 50% free throws in your? Is that ethical hoops?
The Dagger kind of missed the whole Bam 83 thing. We'll save that for another episode, but that could be a fun conversation.
That would be fun.
Anyway, Houston. Yeah, it's weird to think about how a college basketball team can be good without relying on free throws, but that's their style, and as you're right to point out, the style of some other teams too. One of the only problems I would say is that Illinois is high key on a really cold streak. You mentioned this for another team, but they're 4-5 in their last 9 games. So that's not what you want from a tournament team. But often there's some team that comes in cold and then proceeds to start out strong. And so this isn't necessarily a great matchup. Some statistics show that Houston is the best team in this region, so I'm okay picking Houston. But based on your analysis, I'm very happy to pick a minor upset and go with the Fighting Illini. So we can do that.
I think that we should choose Houston. I just wanted to preface that for potentially what they might. I don't know. I feel like we should go chalk. I feel like we should make the safe pick here.
Okay.
And because
I liked your analysis, but in my planning, I did pick Houston, and I think that Illinois' path is harder. That's actually up for debate because St. Mary's is pretty good, so we'll see how Houston has to deal with that. But
honestly, though, this oh man, because I really don't believe in this Houston team, but I honestly think that the matchup against Florida is perfect for them.
Yeah, this is. I was dreading this. Okay, so let's pick Houston, and we get to Florida versus Houston, the rematch that everyone except me wants. And
I think everyone except for all Florida fans.
Yeah, exactly. So this game, by the way, if I'm correct, would be played in Houston. Yeah. So not really ideal. And Florida, as incredibly physical as we are, having the best rebounder in all of college basketball, Ruben Shinilu, which is crazy if I said that like 2 years ago. That's ridiculous to think about, But anyway, the best front court in the country with Hawk and Condon, the most hit or miss guards in the country, like we already talked about. And then you have this Houston team that is one of the best and most well-coached defenses. And, we looked like we were going to lose to them last year. We squeaked out a win because we had the most clutch player last year in all of college basketball, playing for the Memphis Grizzlies now. And it is not a good matchup. Now, Florida is very good at adjusting to other teams' paces, and so even though we play at a pretty high pace, and Houston plays at a very slow pace, if this ends up being a lower scoring game, I don't think UF will struggle in that context necessarily. But given how good Houston's 3-point defense is, and in addition how bad our 3-point offense is to begin, when it comes down to it, I think that they'll have the best player on the floor in Flemings, and assuming Houston can get past the Illini, if any of our guards have a cold game, a nerve-wracking game in a stadium full of Houston fans, it's perfectly viable that we lose this. So I know you said a perfect matchup. Do you agree with me there?
I think that it's absolutely a perfect matchup for Houston. I mean, can you imagine the pure glee that Emmanuel Sharp and Milos Uzan would feel in their hearts going from last year having to guard Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, and
my God,
Elijah Martin, to Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland. And I do see a path to UF winning this game, obviously. I mean, as tough as Houston is on the boards, Florida's better. And if Houston does want to slow down the game, Florida is absolutely capable of playing that way and working the ball into their bigs and just trying to draw fouls or be able to, I think probably match up with Houston quite well physically on the inside. But can you truly win a game in March without your guards producing almost anything? I think is the question. I feel like both you and I have significant doubts if we think that there's even any room where Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland would go off against this trio of guards that Houston has.
No. Yeah, nothing. This entire season has been hit or miss from those guys, and nothing has instilled confidence. And especially during the non-con play, and I understand that Xavier has gotten so much better this season, but in the sample size we have against play styles that he's not very familiar with, the dude was just awful. And Boogie, too, was extremely hot and cold. And, we obviously are coming off of a loss in the SEC tournament. There's a strong reason to believe that we lose to Vandy before this. So I think it's perfectly safe it's sad, because of course I will be picking Florida in my primary bracket, but we can move on from the Gators. It might be time to say goodbye.
I think it is time to say goodbye, but it has to happen to us all, except for one team. So
you're right, all but one. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here, and then we'll come back to talk about the West and Midwest. Welcome back, everybody. It is time to dive into the second half of the bracket. We're going to begin with the Midwest region. My uncle went to Long Island University. Go Sharks! But we will not be picking them. Arizona will take the W. All right.
Bad day for your uncle.
Yeah, it maybe a slight moment of glory for a minute or two. But all right, 8 versus 9 matchup: Villanova versus Utah State. I'll start. Villanova, of course, a very historically interesting team and fan favorite. But I got Utah State in this one. Most metrics indicate that Utah State is vastly underseeded, and people were very annoyed that they had to play a 9 seed line as opposed to a sort of 7 seed that they were projected to be around. And it's kind of disrespectful to the Mountain West as a whole, but I'll just move past that. Per Evan Mia, Utah State has the 6th best odds in this region to make it out. So, again, having them as a 9 seed, he has them over both Nova and Miami, Florida. And I believe the 6th seed, too, which I'm finding is BYU. Yeah. And they have a very good defense and a lot of talent on their roster. And I don't think there's much to write home about for Villanova. So Utah State is favored in this game, too, which usually is just what I pick for a 9-8 matchup. And so I'm happy to take the mild underdog if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. In the rare event that one of my friends, AJ, gets this far in the video, I'm really sorry, AJ. He's a big Villanova fan. But this Utah State team is among the nation's best in forcing turnovers and is remarkably efficient from 2. I think that a lot of the advanced metrics really like this team. So I'm down to go Utah State. Sorry, AJ. Okay.
Sounds good. So next we got Wisconsin versus High Point. Now, High Point, as you can see, is 30-4. They had a very great regular season, and there's some very interesting stats about this 12 seed. Most notably is that they are incredibly good in the kill shot metric from Evan Mia. They go on many 10-0 runs, and they really do not allow them. And so in a game where they start out on fire or they just get out to a big lead at, say, the start of the second half, Wisconsin might not be able to come back, but this is still a very strong Wisconsin team overall that has an excellent opponent adjustment rate and takes a lot of threes. High Point also shoots a lot of free throws. This is just going to be a high-scoring game. This is a very fair upset pick. If y'all want to pick a smaller school, Rajan, who cannot be here, would be screaming at us for even considering Wisconsin in this matchup because he swore on whomever's grave that they were going to win the championship last year, and they did not win the first round. So I think we're trying to mature a bit, and we're going to pick Wisconsin. But I don't know if I think you agree with me there, Dylan, right?
So obviously we just talked about this, and I forgot that this was like Rajan's ride or die.
Right.
And I also, looking over our bracket, do not see a 5-12 upset at all, which statistically is pretty unlikely if it doesn't happen at all. I'm okay with going High Point. I regret talking you out of the High Point pick. As much as I like Wisconsin, I think that they're a good pick, and we have to represent beloved member and host of the podcast, Rajan Rao, as he is in Italy. So
right. Yeah, you're right. Number 5 per ESPN, number 5 seeds have only won 64% of their first round matchups, and 34 of 40 tournaments have had at least one 12 seed winning. So we felt good about St. John's. We felt good about Vanderbilt. We're going to get to Texas Tech, Akron. That's a bit more up in the air too. But of those 4, High Point is my favorite 12 seed. So just thinking about it that way, let's just move with them.
All right. Sounds good.
And then we got Hawaii and Arkansas. Now, the one interesting thing I'll say about Hawaii before letting you talk about Arkansas real quick is that they have this very special defensive scheme If you know anything about them, you know that they literally do not do any help defense, right? They force complete ISO ball, and they, well, as I said, they just stick to their defenders man to man and play in this extremely unique style that helped them succeed in their conference. But against a guy like Darius Acuff, I don't know how well that's going to work. I do have Arkansas here.
I also have Arkansas here. Hawaii is an absolutely beautiful island, and this Hawaii team is an absolutely incredible team. But one island I would not want to be on is the Darius Acuff Jr. Island out
tough.
in space with no help defense. I appreciate that. I was cooking that up in my head. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you saw the vision. No, that was well executed.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yeah, this guy, Darius Acuff Jr., the SEC Player of the Year. I mean, you really can't say enough about this kid. I would say of the current crop of freshmen in an incredible year, and this draft class that has such high expectations associated with it, I would say that the biggest riser of that entire group is Darius Acuff Jr. I would even go as far to say that in John Calipari's long and illustrious career of producing incredible freshman talent, especially at the guard position, that as a college player, Darius Acuff Jr. might be the best of any of them. And yes, that does include Derrick Rose. Wow. He is playing at an unbelievable level right now. He's averaging 22.9 points a game and 6.5 assists per game. He has absolutely shredded defenses this year from all three levels, and he's been doing it while injured. He's been doing this at arguably, depending on the severity of the injury, I've seen mixed sources on it, anywhere between 60 to maybe 80% health capacity. I mean, he has every tool in his bag possible. He's an incredible scorer in isolation. He's a willing facilitator. He is the engine of this Arkansas team. You cannot say enough good things about him. And he willed this Arkansas team to an SEC championship. Against a field that was pretty tough, their path to the championship. I like what the Rainbow Warriors do on defense. I watched potentially the same video as you, breaking down their unique scheme. I think that of all of the teams that it would not work against, Arkansas is one of the biggest because of their ability to isolate, because of their length and athleticism with guys like Brazil, their incredible forward who has a knack for rising to the moment in March, guys like Malik Thomas. Like, these are very, very talented athletic isolation scorers. I'm going to take Arkansas on this one, and I cannot wait to see what Darius Acuff Jr. can do with the bright lights of the NCAA tournament shining down on him.
Excellent. Now, speaking of individual incredible freshmen, our next matchup is BYU against the first four winner between North Carolina State and the Texas Longhorns. And it's very hard to pick a game featuring a first four team because you don't really know who to compare BYU to. Both NC State and Texas are interesting. Just looking ahead at that game, Texas is favored to win by just 1.5 points. So it's a kind of a toss-up. And you don't know who you're getting there for their opponent. But BYU obviously will have the best player on the floor in AJ Debinsa. We've talked about Boozer and Peterson already, and so here's the third member of the trio. He's obviously a number one overall pick candidate. He's one of the best downhill scorers in the entire NCAA. He's an incredible facilitator and defender, and probably the best all-around, most complete player or freshman that is at the cream of the crop for the NBA. The only issues with BYU, I would say, is that recently their defense has been kind of sketch, and they had a slightly poor finish to the season. Their record is only 23-11, but they had a lot of difficult games. I still am very happy to pick BYU here. I think you're the same, Dylan.
Yeah, I am as well. I would just be wary of BYU. I've seen personally how glaring the inconsistencies in that team can be, even with the talent of DeBonsa. I watched UCF go on the road in front of a sold-out crowd at the Marriott Center, BYU's home court, which is, I believe, the largest capacity college basketball stadium. It's either that or Fog Allen Fieldhouse, and basically beat the brakes off of them. At a certain point in the game, I think we were up by like 36 or 38. And the final score was not nearly reflective of how embarrassing that game was for BYU, especially missing Richie Saunders. This is certainly not a team that's at its full strength, but I guess there are some guys on NC State that if they really find a way to put it together, they could make a potential interesting run. I know that you'll remember Darian Williams, one of Texas Tech's better players from last year, who gave Florida quite a scare in their tournament game. They also have Trey Holloman, a former Michigan State guy who also reached a regional final. So they certainly have some tournament experience, but it just seems like the first year under Will Wade didn't really click together like a lot of NC State fans were hoping that it would. I could see them winning the first game against Texas. I don't know if I see them beating BYU. Let's take BYU here.
Okay. I agree with you. And BYU actually is not first in the capacity. They're about like 10th. But,
oh, really? What are some of the stadiums that are bigger?
Well, this is confusing to me, but apparently first is Syracuse with a capacity of 35,000.
That makes sense.
I did not know about that. And then you actually have normal basketball stadium sizes with Louisville, North Carolina, Tennessee and Kentucky, St. John's and Georgetown, NC State, who we are talking about right now, then Arkansas, then BYU.
But okay, so I understand now. A couple of those are definitely cheating, because I think that Syracuse is just large for the love of the game. But NC State plays in a professional hockey arena. It's the Lenovo Center.
Yeah.
And then a couple
St.
of those
John's
other
plays
names
at
I
Madison
recognize.
Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, right.
Yeah.
So, okay, my mistake, but...
All right, fair enough. Okay, so we're going to take Gonzaga over Kennesaw State, if you're chill with that. I think I had
absolutely.
I had some stat about Kennesaw State. I wrote that they play fast. All right, moving on.
Good for them.
Who do you got in Miami versus Missouri?
Miami. Missouri was pretty uninspiring for me. I mean, they have Mark Mitchell, but that's about all I know about them, and there's probably a reason for that. I don't know.
Yeah, they're prone to a lot of turnovers. Miami is not, so I'm good with that. And I'm good with Purdue to win their 2-seeded game. Though you really can never trust Purdue, can you? They lost. They're the ones who lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. Yeah, there you go.
Correct.
So, that FDU, believe
Actually,
it. Oh man.
Fairleigh Dickinson. Let's see. Who start talking about the next matchup while I find just how many teams have upset Purdue in the past couple of years.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to Arizona versus Utah State at the top. Dylan and I agree that this should be Arizona. Utah State, as we mentioned, has some strengths, but Arizona is what many people have called the most consistent team all season. They're the third overall seed. Actually, maybe the second. I don't remember. But they're truly one of the most complete offenses and defenses. And so we're going to take Arizona. And we are also going to take Arkansas. Oh, let me calm down. We're also going to take Arkansas and ACUF over High Point. High Point's just not going to be our Cinderella story. And given that this could also be Wisconsin as their opponent, we just like Arkansas getting out of this group of 4 and making it to the Sweet 16 with the best player. So, did you find the stat?
I did. So in 2023, yes, FDU, believe it, with number 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson beating them. The previous year, in 2022, you'll remember Doug Edert and the St. Peter's Peacocks.
I still follow that guy on Instagram. He's amazing. Yeah.
Cool guy. Yeah. And then in 2021, the number 13 seeded North Texas Mean Green beat Purdue in an upset. So, yeah, pretty rough sledding for Purdue fans. Now, nothing's happened for at least the last two tournaments. Yeah. So
yeah, because they lost in the championship game to UConn with Edey, and I don't remember what happened last year. I know they didn't make it to the Final Four, obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, fun fact: UNT. I applied there to college because they had the best like food allergy food and dining hall in the country for
Really?
people with food allergies. They have like an entire dining hall for people with top 9 food allergies. It's ridiculous. So,
Wow, that's awesome.
like a safety of a safety, I know, but I do recommend people who are sensitive to that stuff to check it out. So, shout out the Mean Green.
Cool.
Okay, so we got Arizona and Arkansas going to the Sweet 16 or Sweet 16. Yep. So now I'll let you start. How do you feel about BYU Gonzaga? Do you think it ends here for BYU? Neither team is really trustworthy, right? It's not like you don't really necessarily want to root for either.
Yeah, I don't actually love either of these teams. You know what? I mean, I don't know. I'll defer to you on this one. I'll let you pick this one because I feel awful about both teams.
Yeah. I mean, having to pick between presumably these two or Purdue, like, it's hard to want to cheer any of them on. I just think BYU has been too inconsistent down the stretch.
I agree.
And Ryan
It's a fair point.
Hammer's trapezoid of excellence comparing pace versus net rating put 5 teams in the zone that you want to be in for a national contender. The top 3 seeds, of course, Duke, Michigan, and Arizona were there. And the other 2 were Iowa State and Gonzaga. And that really was eye-catching, like that Gonzaga really can play any kind of style that they're forced to. And I think that they have good enough defense to be able to handle Devonsa. So I think we just kind of pick chalk and not really worry too much about it.
All right, I'm good with that.
Okay, cool.
And then Purdue over Miami. Do we need to discuss anything there?
Nah, not particularly. Braden Smith, again, we haven't mentioned him yet, but one of the best players in the entire tournament here. And so we're going to have him take him there.
I think that he's only 1 assist behind Bobby Hurley's all-time record, but I'm going to look that up.
Wow. All right. So, unfortunately, we end up with a quite chalky Final Four, or Sweet 16 here, for Final Four for the region. We're going to have the 1 seed Arizona versus the 4 seed Arkansas. This is a debate. And, you know, Arkansas and Wisconsin, before the tournament, are 2 teams that were kind of trending as like, long teams favored to make a long run that aren't going to be a top 3 seed. And it's a shame that they have to play each other, that's for sure. And it's a damn shame that they have to play Arizona as early as the second weekend. But I think that Arkansas matches up quite well to them. With that being said, the by far most logical thing to do is take Arizona because they are just downright incredible. And I think you've watched more Arizona games than me. So what do you have to say for this matchup?
Arizona is honestly one of the most unfair teams that I have ever watched assembled on a basketball court. They have an unbelievable mixture of experienced veteran players and absolutely brilliant freshmen that have been melted together into this lineup in a way that I don't know that I have really seen done so successfully before. When you just look at the surface level stuff, you have Braden Burries and Koa Pete, which are 2 guys that are expected to at least go in the top 15 of the NBA draft. The kind of unsung hero of the freshman group is a kid from Germany's Bayern Munich system, Karchenkov, who is just an absolute Swiss Army knife, can do anything. The paint is anchored by a contender for Defensive Player of the Year, Mo Krivas, who is incredibly disciplined, does not leave his feet, is not only tall, but he's huge and he has really, really quick feet. An incredibly effective defender down low. And honestly, just as a whole team, it's like going up against the Monstars when you have to play them. And that's not even mentioning their backup center, Tobe Awaka, who has been a mainstay in the Arizona lineup and has accepted a role as a sixth man. Um, One of the most efficient, I believe that he is behind Ruben Shinyulu as the most efficient rebounder in the nation. And they have the luxury of bringing that guy in off the bench. Also complemented by another guy who kind of fits the six-man role, who was a starter for them last year. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he's an Australian kid, De Orzo. He has had several games where he just explodes for 20 points and looks to be absolutely unstoppable. And I haven't even gotten to the senior leader of this team, kind of the engine that calms everything down, and that's Jaden Bradley, Big 12 Player of the Year. This team is unbelievable. They're deep. They have any measure of a team that you could possibly look for in March. They can hit the three. They can work it inside. They're an incredible defense, or they're an incredible team on defense. They don't turn over the ball a lot. There's just really nothing that I have seen that tells me that this Arizona team has any significant glaring flaw or weakness that would keep them from potentially winning a national championship.
Okay. Sounds good. I agree with you. We're good to pick Arizona then. And then we move on to the Zags versus Purdue. And this is really a toss-up. It's a great game. Again, neither team necessarily is super exciting, but both of them are championship favorites and have a ceiling of winning the title, in my opinion. And I think that this is one of the toughest matchups to decide in the entire bracket when I filled out my first draft. Gonzaga, as I said, is firmly in this like trapezoid of excellence. They're very, very excellent in the turnover differential. But meanwhile, Purdue is one of the best shooting teams in the entire tournament field. Now, one specific stat that I will point out is that 3 seeds, it can be hard to make the Elite Eight. Over the last 10 years, 3 seeds have made it 27% of the time. But here's something that's interesting. When a 3 seed is both top 30 in turnover rate and top 130 in defensive turnover rate, they've made it every time. There's only been a few, but they made it every time. And Gonzaga matches that this year. So that would be a fair reason to pick them. And the story of this podcast, by the way, is cherry pick stats because it's impossible to analyze everything all at once. But I do like Gonzaga here, and a lot of statistics would say that they are the best 3 seed, juxtaposing them to Michigan State, Illinois, and eventually Virginia. But anyway, I therefore am leading Gonzaga, although I'm confident that Purdue has the best player, and I'm very willing to be persuaded on this if you disagree with me. So go ahead, Dylan.
No, that's a great stat that you pulled. And like you said, this podcast is all about cherry picking stats. This is what we do. Let's take Gonzaga to face off against Arizona.
Okay, I agree with you there. And then we got the Gonzaga versus Arizona. If we take Gonzaga, we'll have a 1, 2, and 3 seed in the Final Four. Or we could take Arizona, which you just described for our listeners as one of the most unfair and high-powered teams in the country. So how do you feel about this?
I do not think that Gonzaga is capable of beating Arizona.
Yeah. That's a fair decision. Yeah. And Code Pete, hopefully we can get to watch him all tournament and the other talent that Arizona has. And we'll be taking the Wildcats. Although keep in mind the dangerous thing you mentioned about West Coast teams, it can be tough
to
make it this far. That's why Arizona typically fizzles out even long before the Final Four. But this, by all accounts, should be the best Arizona team we've seen in the last decade or so. So if it's going to break, it's got to be this year, right?
Sure.
I think I had them winning a bracket when I was a kid, and they were a 2 seed, and they lost in the first day or second day. So that's really screwed with
Sounds
me.
like
But
Arizona. Was that
yeah,
the DeAndre Ayton team?
I don't know. I couldn't have told you a player. I just remember that feeling. But
Hmm.
okay, that's the West region, and finally, we will be doing the Midwest region. We got Michigan over Howard versus over UMBC. Any disagreements there?
No.
We got Georgia versus St. Louis. Dylan was just in St. Louis, and Georgia, of course, big rival of the Florida Gators, who I used to adore, but now I'm not a fan of. And there's a very strong reasons to pick St. Louis for this game, and I actually have St. Louis marked as a very, very strong Cinderella team. Not maybe not strong enough to beat Michigan, although in a couple of my brackets I will have them beating Michigan. St. Louis is second in 3-point percentage. They're extremely good in the kill shot differential. They're extremely good at adjusting to pace. They are not that good against good perimeter defenses, which unfortunately Michigan is extremely good, but Georgia won't be a huge problem for them. And they kind of do turn the ball over a lot, but if you look at the trapezoid, they actually have a very close net rating and pace to UF. They play very similarly. They have a very fast offense. And so this is just a team that's going to be really fun to root for, and I think they'll have some special players that make impacts, like Trey Green, who I have marked, and Brady Dunlap. So if you hear any of those names on the day that they play, don't be too surprised. I feel very good about St. Louis here, though.
I do too, and it's for 3 reasons. I'll throw 3 names at you. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, um,
Oh my goodness, yes.
Larry Nerd, and Milk Chamberlain. Possibly my favorite player of all time that I've ever watched in college is going to the big dance, and I cannot wait. If anybody's unfamiliar, we are talking about Robbie Avila, a player who is shape could be likened to melted Play-Doh, but is an absolutely incredible basketball player. He was previously at Indiana State and got robbed of going to the tournament in last year's season, has since transferred to St. Louis and is scoring 12.9 points per game and 4.5 rebounds per game. But he is an absolutely electric player to watch. I know that he is more than likely going to wind up being a fan favorite in March, especially if they happen to keep things close with Michigan. So give me St. Louis and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
All right, I'm a fan. Okay, now, very excitingly, these next 2 matchups are the other games that we are going to get to watch in person in Tampa. In fact, at 12:40 Eastern Time, Texas Tech versus Akron will tip off. And then at 3:10, Bama versus Hofstra will tip off. And these are 2 games that a lot of experts are circling with a prime opportunity for upset. So on top of getting to watch UF, I am really hoping that we get to see a double-digit team upset here, like Furman, Virginia.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I was going to say we have a pretty good history of witnessing upsets.
Exactly.
For the people at home, we attended with one of our friends from back home, Alex, the regional at Amway when Furman beat Virginia on the very iconic Kevin Harlan call, where the Virginia player threw the ball behind his head 40 feet and it got picked off. And I think it was Pegues. Pegues was the player who wound up hitting the game-winning shot, and Kevin Harlan went crazy. Great time, great memories. So maybe we'll have that same luck in the Tampa regional. Certainly could be influenced by recent news out of the University of Alabama. We won't get too much into the details of that, but Aiden Holloway, Alabama's arguably their best player, certainly their most productive scoring guard. I mean, they still have LeBaron Philon, but their most productive scoring guard will not be joining the team in the NCAA tournament because of legal issues that have surfaced recently. So that could absolutely tip how we're going to go in that matchup. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ramsey.
Yeah, since you already brought it up, I'm just gonna say flat out that I like Hofstra over Alabama, and that is our biggest upset so far, and I think it's deserved. If you take a look at the statistics, Hofstra truly is comprised of a incredible backcourt. They have some players that I have written here, like Cruz Davis and Preston Edmead, which some have labeled as the best guard duo in the mid majors, right? And then, of course, they're playing in this sub-region that have similar play styles. I think all four of these teams play very quick. Well, I should say like they have very unique play styles, not that they're very similar. In fact, Alabama versus Hofstra is one of the biggest like disparities in play style because if you take a look at Alabama's play style, they play unbelievably fast. They have a ton of possessions and they are a very high scoring team and their style is to run teams off the court. They shoot the most threes in the country as well. They don't really care about turnovers, but they also don't really have that many themselves. So being able to control the ball when you have the ball that often is truly incredible. So fair warning, Alabama might win by 30, and Hofstra might have never had a chance. But in my opinion, Hofstra is primed to take advantage of Alabama, especially if they're missing that player, like you mentioned. They do play very slow, but they have excellent free throw shooters, excellent three-point shooters. They adjust well to playing opponents. And Evan Mia's statistic with how well do you rise to the level of the competition you're playing. Hofstra was the second best out of every team here. And if you're going to pick a mid-major to make a big upset, especially over an SEC team that neither of us like, I would much prefer to go with Hofstra here over any other 13 seed in the field. So I'm okay with picking them, and I think you agree with me.
I do. Great pick. I got to watch Hofstra open up the year against UCF and almost shock the Knights at home. They are an incredibly tough team. Their duo of guards is as legit as everybody says that they are. I've gotten to see them in person. And especially in the absence of Aiden Holloway, we have no idea how that will impact Alabama's team, how that will potentially distract the mentality of their team. I don't think that can be understated either, losing one of their leaders and one of their best players, especially at the guard position. So let's go with Hofstra and hope that we have nailed what would be one of the biggest upsets of the tournament in the 2026 March Madness bracket.
I'm going to plant my flag there as the upset I am the proudest of. If we're to get it right, obviously we have like South Florida circled and High Point as some flyers, but I'm excited about that, and I'm very excited about the next matchup too. Texas Tech Akron, which I know both of us were considering Akron for this as well, but I ultimately ended up settling on Texas Tech. And the reason why I have that marked is because they are both incredible three-point shooting teams. And so I think this is going to be like a very, very high-scoring game. Both Akron and Texas Tech shoot the three-point percentage. Akron at about 38.5, Texas Tech at 39.5. That's like second and fourth in the tournament field. And hopefully we get to watch a fun game. I have a friend who's connected to Akron. I'd like to root for them, but Tech is a really talented team, and so we might as well just pick them to avoid all the crazy upsets.
I agree. And before JT Toppin's injury, Texas Tech was looking at a 3 seed, maybe higher. They're an incredibly talented team, but obviously you lose a potential player of the year candidate to a season-ending injury, and that's going to have repercussions on your team. Nevertheless, right. Christian Anderson is one of the best point guards in the country, both as a scorer and facilitator. And at the end of the day, my golden rule of thumb is trust good guard play in March. I think that he at least does enough to get them through the first round, and then from there they'll see Hofstra.
Yeah, that would be very exciting. So I hope we get to see an upset, at least one. Even if we flip it, even if Akron wins and Bama wins, that would still be exciting to get to witness. So, but those are our picks for the Tampa games. And I'll let you start with this matchup between 6 seeded Tennessee versus the winner of the play-in game between SMU from Dallas, and Miami of Ohio. Of course, Miami, besides all these top teams, is probably the most famous story of the season with them going undefeated in the regular season, and then profoundly blowing a game against Toledo. But they have so many incredible wins, and they definitely do deserve to be here in the tournament. We don't really have to talk about the fact that a lot of people didn't want them to be in it. And we know that their level of competition isn't very good. And it's hard to compare Tennessee against a what-if team that you don't know who will win. But yeah, who do you got for this one?
I believe that we talked about this, and our consensus is that we did not like Tennessee coming into this matchup and coming into March in general. They lost 3 of their final 4 regular season games. They weren't too healthy at the end of the year. Obviously, their junior forward, Cade Phillips, was ruled out for the season in December with a shoulder injury. That was a huge loss for this team. And then they've had other lingering injuries that hopefully shouldn't affect them too much come tournament time, but you never know. This Vols team doesn't shoot the ball particularly well, not from the 3-point line, not from the free throw line. There's just a lot of stuff to really not like about this Tennessee team. But of all of those, my biggest thing would be Nate Ament. It is just a huge wild card. He's an immensely talented young player, but has the tendency to fade in games. And, sometimes you don't even know that he's even playing. He demonstrated that perfectly during the SEC tournament game against Vanderbilt, where he was basically a no-show. I think that looking at the potentials for the matchup that they could be going against, Miami of Ohio is obviously a great story, and sometimes those teams just manage to find a way. And the more likely matchup, I think, if you look at a lot of the statistics, is SMU, which I know that you brought up some pretty positive statistics for when we were planning this out. If you remember those or want to share those.
Yeah, I would say I actually wrote some more horrible stats about Tennessee that I was more excited about.
Go on in on Tennessee.
Like, I wrote terrible free throw shooting, bad 3-point shooting, both of which you already mentioned, poor adjustment to pace, poor opponent adjustment overall. Like, they don't play well up to teams that are better than them. And one fun fact, though, that did catch my eye is that Tennessee is the best offensive rebounding team in the country. So in a situation where it comes to that, they do have quite a strong and tall front court that can help them. And so looking at a chart I just made, Miami is on the much lower end of offensive rebound percentage, and SMU seems to be somewhere in the middle. But yeah, overall, I mean, there's not necessarily too much exciting about any of these teams. It's more just a slight distaste for Tennessee and the run that they the fall off that they kind of had recently. But overall, SMU does have the number 3 offense, if I remember correctly, in the ACC, and they have some good scorers, and hopefully, barring injury issues that they've had, if they beat Miami, they'll be able to beat Tennessee. And just historically as well, I would say picking a 1 first 4 team, you can't pick a 16 seed, of course, but picking one of the 11 seed play-in winners to make it to the second round is usually strategically advantageous. So let's go with them over the Volunteers. And we will also go with Virginia over Wright State.
Yes.
And then this next matchup is not so obvious. Now, first, I'll let you, Dylan, talk about why Kentucky is bad, and then I'll talk about why Santa Clara is good. So you can go first.
Well, looking at Kentucky, very significant expectations coming into this season that this team was going to be much better than they actually wound up being. I believe that this roster had the most money spent on it in all of college basketball this season.
They did,
and
yes.
Given the performance that they had, going 21-13 and 10-8 in the SEC, I don't think that it's unfair to them to say that they grossly underperformed based on their expectations. Um, they have a tendency to play incredibly careless basketball. They're very inconsistent from the free throw line. Um, and they surrender a large amount of threes as well. Like these are kind of just like all the stats that whenever you're reading, how well is a team going to do in March? These are all the things that raise alarm bells when you look at them. So they're going to give up a lot of 3-pointers. They don't take care of business at the charity stripe. They turn the ball over significantly. I mean, you're just looking at a team that if you run into the right mid-major, it just has them dead to rights based on some of these extremely glaring statistics. There is a lot to not like about Tennessee, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the incredible talent that they do have on their team. Denzel Aberdeen, former Florida six-man and incredible piece of that national championship winning team. He's a very strong guard, averaging 13.2 points per game and 3.6 assists per game. And Kentucky is led in scoring by Otega Owe, somebody who was on their team last year and was a very strong scorer last year and has carried that production into this year, averaging 18.2 points per game and 4.6 rebounds per game. It's not like any game against Kentucky will be easy. At the end of the day, they are Kentucky, and at the end of the day, they did pay for a significant amount of talent on this roster. Now, putting it together has not gone nearly as successfully as many thought that it would, but it doesn't mean that they are, dead in the water. A team will still very much have to earn beating Kentucky.
Absolutely. So we will go with Santa Clara. And the reason why I would prefer to go with Santa Clara is, in addition to what you just said, some additional positive statistics regarding them. For example, they're one of the tallest teams in the country. They're very athletic and strong and, just have long arms and play good defense. And that's why I think, given this kind of offense, they are primed to make a sort of Cinderella run. They have incredible turnover margin and are excellent at forcing turnovers, which pairs very well with how you said Kentucky turns the ball over. They do not shoot many free throws, and they also allow a lot of them. So they actually are at the highest differential regarding that. So if they play a team that is a very good free throw shooting team, I would be quite scared. I don't think that's a good matchup. But overall, it's just a very interesting team who also plays a similar style to Kentucky, and they're kind of flexible in a similar manner. So this was like an immediate upset pick for me. So we're going to go with Santa Clara here, and we're also going to go with Iowa State for the next round. Next game. And yeah, let's go back up. So we have Michigan versus St. Louis. We didn't really talk about Michigan, but as much as I like St. Louis, and as much as I think that it's very possible that one of the 1 seeds loses in the first weekend, and as inclined as I am to say that this would be my favorite, it's impossible to let this, let this happen. So let's pick Michigan. Right? Yeah. Okay. So I'll let you talk first about the next more interesting mildly game, which is Texas Tech Hofstra. A little bit weird to analyze.
I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I might like Hofstra in this game. I mean, I think that they have a lot there with their guard duo that we were talking about previously. I think that Texas Tech has had lapses during certain points of this season where they are out rebounded by teams that are significantly smaller than them. They have also had the reverse of that, where they have absolutely bullied teams on the glass kind of out of nowhere. They're a very weird team when it comes to rebounding. So I don't necessarily think that Hofstra's size disadvantage would be a deal breaker in this matchup. And historically, I mean, looking at the rest of our bracket, we do not have Any. Oh, I guess we have South Florida. I don't know. I'm down to pick Texas Tech in this game. I like Christian Anderson. I like the guys that they have on the wings. They're an excellent 3-point shooting team. And if they get hot, like I don't think that Hofstra would be able to win in that circumstance. Um, but if they catch them at the right time, I think that Hofstra has a talented enough team to be able to pull off this upset against the Texas Tech team without JT Toppin.
And I
But
think
I'll defer to you.
I think missing Toppin it might be what ultimately yields their demise. And I agree, this is a really hard game for Hofstra, and Texas Tech has played a lot more difficult opponents. I mean, they beat Duke earlier this year. Like it's with Toppin, obviously. It would be very difficult to pick against this team that has such a strong resume. And comparing against Hofstra, who what's the biggest claim to fame? They lost by 4 to UCF. None of the other games here listed are against tournament teams. So anyway, with all that said, you got to pick a couple teams to ride out with, and this bracket we're making is not exactly to win a league. It's more to like try to be perfect and call some shots. Try to get our upsets in. So let's go with Hofstra, man. Let's take Hofstra and let's have fun watching them in Tampa. Wish we could stay to watch this game too on Sunday, but yeah. So then we got Virginia versus the winner of SMU and Miami of Ohio. I'm inclined to just pick Virginia without thinking much about it, right? And then we got Iowa State, Santa Clara. So Iowa State is one of the most complete teams in the entire tournament. How do you feel about this?
I know that you really like Santa Clara. I really like Iowa State. They are a very well-rounded team. They have a great guard play in Tamin Lipsey, who feels like he's been at Iowa State forever. They have an absolute sniper and star in Milan Momcilovic, who I'm very excited for more people to get to see play. He is shooting nearly 50% on an average of 7 3-point attempts per game. And oftentimes when they really need him to get things going against higher level competition, he's on the higher end of that. He is a very rare talent at the college level, and hopefully one day at the professional level, if his game projects well to the NBA, which I think that it will. And I think that there's a lot to like about Iowa State. But you know a lot more about Santa Clara than I do, so give me your argument if you think that they pull off the upset and why.
I think the biggest problem I have is that Iowa State is, arguably, it not quite, but it's one of the best defenses in the entire country. And overall, their net rating is just incredible. They're in that trapezoid, as I mentioned, and they're in that upper echelon of competitors. And one of the biggest disadvantages that I would say Santa Clara might have is that they allow a lot of free throws. But the problem is that Iowa State actually isn't a very good free throw shooting team. So that's not something that they can capitalize on. So that's a point to Santa Clara. And then the other item that I would mention is the turnover margin, which Santa Clara is very good in and forces a lot more turnovers than they commit. But Iowa State is right up there with them, as most of these upper echelon teams have to be good in that area, and Iowa State is there. And Iowa State had an extremely great start to the season with non-conference play. They've faced some tough opponents since then. But with that being said, I actually probably will complete several brackets having both Santa Clara and Hofstra in the Sweet 16. But given that we called our shot on Hofstra, I'm very happy with bringing Iowa State here. Although I really don't even know at this point who our Final Four team will be. It's tough to decide. So I'll agree with you. We can go with Iowa State. And I'm also happy then to ride them and take them over Virginia. because I just don't feel as confident with the UVA team, if you agree with that.
I completely agree.
And then we do have Hofstra over Michigan, so we can just move on to the next round.
Absolutely. And then Hofstra over Iowa State, and then Hofstra over Arizona, correct?
Absolutely, and then we'll figure out the rest. I don't remember the last year. I think it was DJ Burns and NC State must have been like the last double digit to make the Final Four. I just playing basic odds. The team will not be Hofstra. We have a 1 in about 20 chance of it being Hofstra, but we will not be picking them to beat Michigan. Now, Michigan versus Iowa State, however, is quite an issue, and I know it's a little bit chalky, everyone who's listening, because yes, our Elite Eight is 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-3. But we're not trying to be too harsh around here. I would say if you want to make our bracket like more realistic, then you can go back and take Vanderbilt over Florida. You can go back and take Arkansas over Arizona. You could take Santa Clara, or you could take Hofstra over Michigan. But we're just gonna try to discuss who we feel as the quality and the best champions when it comes down to it. So let's start here first. Our final four team. Who do you have between Michigan and Iowa State?
It's a tough matchup, but I really like Michigan. And here's why it's a tough matchup. I don't know if you've watched anything on how Michigan plays defense, but Michigan, the reason that they are one of the most effective defenses in the country is because of Adai Mara. They're ginormous 7'2". I've seen varying measurements for him. Center who is very, very light on his feet, and they play a very effective switching defense, and they, better than anyone else in the country because of Mara, play great drop coverage on screens. And because of the way that they play in that drop coverage, and because of the way that they can switch 1 through 5 basically on the entire court, except for, really, really small guards on Mara, they force the longest 2-point shot distance on average from teams. So they are great at forcing teams to shoot very low percentage shots. And that compounds over the course of a game, especially with how dynamic they are on offense. It really starts to weigh on you when you're having to work super hard to get low quality shots. The weakness of that defense, which was incredibly, brilliantly exposed by this Australian dude from Wisconsin who made like 7 threes in a row in one half of that game against Michigan in the tournament, is that if you have a stretch 4 that is very, very talented and able to knock down the 3, if they don't key in on him, and sometimes they do have lapses in their switching, especially when there's a lot of like off-ball screening action or multiple screens, like an elevator screen or something like that, they have really, really struggled in certain cases losing track of those guys. Now, I cannot imagine, as good of a coach as Dusty May is, that he would allow Milan Momcilovic to be alone in any area of the court past half court for the entire 40 minutes of that basketball game. However, if you just look at the areas of where they have been hurt previously on offense, Iowa State potentially matches up very, very well with them. With all that being said, I think that this Michigan team has been start to finish, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, one of the 2 most dominant teams in the country. I would say that even with Arizona, it's a 1A, 1B situation, and I know that they lost to Duke, but I'm talking about the full body of work from the start of the season to the end of the season.
Yeah.
I would personally go with Michigan in this matchup, but I would be okay if you gave me a great argument for Iowa State, but I would personally go with Michigan.
I know that there are arguments out there to be made, but I don't have one that I'm a huge fan of, and I agree with you. Michigan is the best defense in the country. And so in a matchup like this, I'll tend to lean towards a team like that who was around the time when I was talking about the Week 6 AP poll and Florida being behind. I said that that Michigan was my pick for the champion, and they've haven't stopped almost all season. Besides, two tough, or they've had 3 losses, but 2 close losses to Purdue and Duke. And the last time that a 2 seed beat a 1 seed in the Elite Eight, fun fact, was Michigan State over Duke, 2019, and Xavier Tillman, current Celtics legend, beating Zion. So, anyway, assuming that does not happen again.
Oh, Cassius Winston as well.
Exactly. That's the team, yep. So, odds are we actually won't see many 1-2 matchups in the Elite Eight, but we'll go a little bit with the chalk, and we'll take Michigan. And that gives us our Final Four. And unfortunately, probably the hardest decisions we have to make yet. We're going to begin with the left side of the bracket. Duke versus Houston. And this was the Final Four matchup last year, right? Am I remembering wrong?
You are remembering correct.
Yeah,
it would be a rematch.
UF did not play Duke. We played Auburn. So, yeah, this is a rematch of the game where, if I remember correctly, Duke choked and Cooper Flagg missed the shot at the end. But
in ridiculous fashion, they choked.
Yeah.
I could not believe my eyes. That was one of the most astounding comebacks I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was unbelievable to watch. And I'd watched that after the Florida game, so I was kind of unfocused and didn't even process how crazy it was until the next day. But yeah, we're in Indianapolis. We got Duke versus Houston. Houston, if you split the country using the Mississippi River, they technically count as like a West Coast team, and so both them and Arizona making it this far, history would indicate that might not be the best idea, and neither of them have had sustained success in March Madness a whole lot. But according to almost every metric, they do deserve to be in this conversation. Duke is the best overall team. I could list you every stat and say that they're top in it. Offense, defense, best player. They have individual problems, though. I would say that one of their biggest problems is that they kind of let teams shoot threes on them. But Houston is not a particularly good three-point shooting team, and so I don't think that that's going to be a very big problem for Duke. And anyway, I'll let you go. You definitely are a Duke. You've been a Duke fan for a long time, and you have also watched a lot of Houston, so you can make this pick first.
Just because of a lot of the things that I was talking about with Houston earlier, I don't want to re-harp on those things because I know that we're trying to wrap it up, but I would take Duke in this matchup.
Okay. Yeah. Then we will be taking the number 1 overall seed for a fun game of the championship. And I like that pick too. And then you got Michigan, Arizona, the other 2 best teams besides Duke. And that is just a tough matchup. I mean, per KenPom, Michigan has the best defense and the 8th best offense. Arizona has the 3rd best defense and the 5th best offense. They're literally neck and neck with each other. This could not get any closer, and this would be a dream come true matchup. Last year, again, we saw all 4 1 seeds make the Final Four, and this year we don't expect that to happen. But if we were to, we could be in the realm again of getting some of the best games possible. So anyway, for this game, it's very difficult to analyze, as I just said, some of the best statistics for both teams. Do you think that with like Koa Pete in the duo and the overall incredible like front court that Arizona has, that they have the tools to beat Michigan's number 1 defense, or is it too much for them?
I think that they absolutely could beat their defense, but I would pick Michigan in this game, and here's why. If you look at the way that Arizona manufactures their points, they are not a heavy 3-point shooting team. They are one of the most efficient 2-point field goal shooting teams in the country. Michigan specializes in taking teams like that, taking them out of their comfort zone, and forcing them to shoot long twos. Arizona has not had to play. I love Mo Krivas. I think that he's an incredible center. I think that he would have at least a decent game, but Arizona has not had to face a guy like Adayamara this entire season. And the length, the experience, the system that Michigan plays, I believe, plays exactly into the kind of game that Arizona does not want. With that being said, it's almost impossible to find something to differentiate these teams. This was just the thing that I observed, knowing or what I've seen and how Arizona likes to score their points. And so because of that, I would choose Michigan over Arizona in this matchup. But I am more than open to being convinced otherwise because this game is just so close to call.
I will take your word for it, man. I don't have a strong preference either way. I haven't even completed my bracket to the national championship because I really wanted to hear your feedback. And frankly, I think that this would be an incredible game. And yes, as you mentioned, Arizona does have some of the best, one of the tallest teams in the league. And so they are a mismatch for almost every team in this field of 68. But Michigan probably is not one of them. And it's going to be a tough game for them to play. And as you mentioned with the shooting overall, that gives us a championship game of Duke versus Michigan. Not exactly a shocker for the folks at home, but I'll let you go first.
Oh, no, please, you go first because I did the Final Four.
Okay. Well, Duke versus Michigan, we have the number 1 overall seed versus Michigan, the number 1 defense. One of the coolest things about Michigan is that they have incredible rotation depth. And an analysis from Evan Mia about a month ago, so it's not fully updated. He ranked, he showed the relative rating according to his statistical measures for the best player and 8th best player on every team. And just to try to measure how good their rotations are for the tournament. And Michigan had the best 8th best player. A little bit weird to think about, but they have the highest and most high performing team across the board of any team in the tournament. And I just think that's incredible. I mean, Michigan and Duke stack up in almost every metric. Michigan leans a bit on the faster side. Duke is a bit slower and more methodical. They both attempt a lot of free throws. Duke is a much better rebounding team, but it's not anything to write home about. And in terms of statistics the kill shot, Michigan is first in the NCAA in going on runs like that, but Duke is 5th, so nothing crazy. By the way, UCF is 3rd to last, so don't forget about that, folks at home.
Thanks,
man. And yeah, no problem.
Just had to throw that in there, huh?
Yeah, I did. One of the only negative stats I could find about Duke is that they do not adjust to other play styles very well. Now, that could be their fault well before the end of the tournament. But with Michigan being a bit of a faster team than them, maybe that could be where they fall short. But again, also very important to mention that these teams literally played each other extremely recently. They played each other on February 21st, and Duke beat Michigan 68-63. And that was likely due to Duke's incredible defensive effort across the board, right? And so if they're able to stop guys like Yaxel and get performances from the best player in the country in Boozer and their incredible other complete roster, I think that they can win. But part of me is just inclined to pick Michigan because if not for the fact that the number 1 overall seed hasn't won the championship in the last at least decade, it's just more compelling, I think, as a total team. I really like the defense wins championships. Defense wins championship. Wait, no, I said it right. Defense wins championships mantra. I really like their roster top to bottom. I love the way you describe their defense. And if they're able to make it past teams like Iowa State and Arizona, I think that they're more than well equipped to make it past Duke. and I would probably very slightly lean them.
And with that, our perfect bracket is capped off. I already had Michigan selected. Now I'm interested. How many total points do you think will be scored in the national championship game?
That's a good question. This ESPN thing says that those teams average 82 and 86, and their opponents average 63 and 69. So, assuming Michigan scores an average of those two and Duke scores an average of the other two across the diagonals, then the final score would be like 75-73 Michigan. So I'm going to go with 148. I'll see if that makes sense.
Ramsey?
Yeah.
You can either choose to believe me or you can choose to not believe me. But 148 has been on my screen since I chose Michigan.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because
right,
I was looking it up, and the average scored in the NCAA men's championship games are 141 to 142 points. But you also have to factor in matchup familiarity, which the first matchup generally goes to the defense. The second matchup generally goes to the offense. So looking at their average points, I just bumped it up by a couple that fell right, and it landed on 148.
I love it, dude. Yep, 148 is the answer then. And that means that it's perfect, right? Fate wrote it. It is written, as they say.
It is written, which is exactly why you guys should follow along with the Dagger podcast and our coverage of March Madness. If not, to just have fun and talk about basketball, to watch the incredible story of our perfect bracket unfold, which will surely hold through when's the first game played?
12:15 on Thursday.
12:15 on Thursday. It will surely make it through 12:15 on Thursday.
Absolutely. We will accept interview requests. Feel free to send all of the prize money to me. I will handle the disbursement to Dylan and Rajan.
No.
I mean, like, they can trust me. You know that?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that it'll have to be taken under the Dagger Sports Industries LLC, and then it will be distributed from there.
Which does exist, by the way. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm gonna.
Yeah, how do you think I afforded this beautiful home behind me?
I'm gonna be handwriting my paper bracket as I do with my family and watching the games, and I'm very excited to go to Tampa with you and our friends and witness the rise of Hofstra, national champions Hofstra, by the way.
True.
Yeah, I think we did a good job. I think we also took it way longer than we wanted, but you can't help it, man. It's March Madness. This is the best time of the year to analyze teams that we had known nothing about. And if you guys made it this far, thank you for listening. Thank you, Dylan, of course. And this was a lot of fun. We will be back. Well, not sure when. We do, of course, have our busy school year concluding soon, but we'll definitely be back after March Madness or potentially during/leading up to the NBA playoffs, and we can do a preview of that or talk about what to expect there, and that might be in later April or May. And make sure to follow us on all our socials like Instagram and Spotify and X. Yeah, thank you, Dylan. Right, it's gonna be fun.
Can't wait. It's gonna be a great time on Friday, and it's gonna be a great March. As John Rothstein always says, we sleep in May.
We certainly do. All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.